Hey everyone, welcome to this video. We are going to be talking about WireGaurd. So WireGaurd is a protocol that creates a secure VPN tunnel. So you've probably heard of openvpn or some of the many other different commonly used VPN protocols. Well, WireGaurd is a very lightweight, very easy to deploy protocol. Now the downside about WireGaurd is it doesn't have a lot of support in terms of it doesn't do TCP, it's strictly UDP. It doesn't have a lot of flexibility in terms of all the encryption and algorithms that you get to use. It's very specific to, very little things. So I think the entire code base is maybe 1,000 lines of code or something like that. I know it's extensively small, and it was designed to be a very lightweight, very fast and efficient way to have a VPN tunnel that's very secure. A lot of P2P networks or different applications nowadays, such as I think it's like Tailscale, something I forget it's exactly called, that links all your different machines on its own like little mesh network, is based around the WireGaurd VPN protocol. So it's definitely an up-and-coming protocol that's being used by a lot of people, a lot of companies, a lot of different products. So in this case, we're going to be creating our own server that we're going to use as a way to connect and then tunnel through the internet and remain very, and gain a lot more privacy and security. So we're going to walk through how to deploy that. So you can download the client. I've already got the client downloaded and installed, but you can download for any different application, any type of OS, Linux, Mac, Windows. So keep that in mind. First, I'm going to go ahead and get a server deployed. So I'm just using Vultr. There's a $100 gift certificate for 2 weeks if you want to deploy your own servers and use that. So I'm going to go ahead and do the cloud compute and high performance AMD. Things to keep in mind is you're going to want newer CPUs because the newer CPUs are going to have better instruction sets that will handle the encryption protocols better, which means you can get a lot more throughput. So before I was using some older E5 CPUs, which gave me 30 down on a 1 gig connection. So do the math, that's not very good. I switched to a different provider that had AMD CPUs, and I watched my throughput go to 700, 900 down on my 1 gig connection. So definitely keep in mind that if at any point you have issues with your download speed, check to see what CPU you might be running on and maybe consider upgrading and see how that works. Location wise, let's just do New York. Things to keep in mind too. Distance matters. If you deploy a VPN that's further away from your physical location, you're going to have a lot more latency because you have to dial out to that location, tunnel all your traffic through that location, and then that traffic gets sent out to whatever location you're going through. So keep in mind that a lot of providers, big companies now have CDNs, content deploy networks. So if say you're based out of Atlanta and they have a CDN node down by Atlanta, well, if you're based in Atlanta, it's going to go straight to that CDN in Atlanta and bring the data back. That's instant because you're in the same location. So keep in mind that if you use a VPN and now you're going all the way to say maybe Hawaii or Japan, well, it's going to pull from those instances and then bring it all the way back through the tunnel to you. So just keep that in mind, that you can deploy wherever you want. You're just going to always add that latency overhead. So just keep that in mind. I'm just going to do that one. Debian's fine. We really only need like one CPU, 1 gig of RAM. We don't really need too much. I don't really want auto backups. And I'm going to label this WG1 and let's deploy. Okay, so while that is spinning up, I'm going to bring up the installation scripts. There's 2 of them out here on GitHub. Yeah, let me go to Google. All right, it's gonna be the first 2. Actually, it's gonna be this one and this one of the 2 that I typically use. This one's probably based off of one of these 2 as well. There's really not too much under the hood, but just keep in mind that it's just a matter of you download, install, and run. Let me do a self plug here. I have all these on my Medium account, so if you want to like do a lot more stuff step by step through text, you can do that. I've also got a lot of other cool things I post here as well. So this is here the WireGuard example, and basically I have all the steps if you just want to follow through on this as well. But be sure to subscribe if you have an account. I've got a lot of cool things I post there as well, way before I get a chance to make a YouTube video. So keep that in mind if you want to stay on top of some new things. Okay, so we have this one installing. Let that spin, and we're going to go ahead and deploy. So I'm going to go ahead and use, let me bring up our SSH console. Refresh this, it should be up now. There we go, still installing. And, ooh, we got a fancy IP, we got a .1. Let's see if this thing is up. Alright, so I have no idea why the New Jersey one's taking forever, so I'm just going to go ahead and use this Chicago one I spun up. So same thing, I'm just going to close this out, and then bring this up, run the Chicago IP. Okay, wow. There we go. Yeah. All right, let's see, copy the password. Okay, cool. Let's get this updated, just to be safe. I always like doing an update, upgrade, just make sure that we get all the latest packages upgraded. It also helps to ensure that we have proper network connection as well, and that, DNS is resolving. It's just a great initial step just to make sure everything is fine. All right, so we have this running, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and grab this, and we're going to download, once it finishes its update here. There we go, okay, cool. And then we want to make sure that we can execute the script. And let's do the install. So set the IP address, we're going to set the public interface. And we have an interface name for the WireGuard. So it's a little different compared to like other VPN protocols. It has like its own little internal interface that it creates as well, and a public interface. So it's a little different compared to like if you use openvpn, but the concept's about the same in terms of complexity. So the other thing too with WireGuard, it's going to randomize the port. I don't believe it has like a standard port that you get to use, that it automatically uses. It just kind of randomizes it on the high end, and it's always going to be UDP. So just keep that in mind in terms of like dealing with firewalls and stuff like that. You might want to try and standardize it to maybe a more local, lower port, just in case you deal with a lot of firewalls that typically will block outgoing on random high levels. Just something to keep in mind you might need to play around with. You might want to tunnel out of UDP 53, but also keep in mind that a secure network will have 53 locked down to just the DNS server IPs. So just something to keep in mind. You might want to drop it down to like more of a like a OpenVPN range, maybe 1194 or something. Just something to keep in mind with when dealing with that. Resolvers, we'll just stick with the Cloudflares. I'm just going to leave the defaults, which basically you can control which IPs are allowed to be routed over the VPN, so that's nice if you want to do a more sophisticated setup. In this case, I'm just going to allow everything, just to stick with the defaults. We're going to call this WG1. This is going to be the internal client IP address. That's fine. So the nice thing too about WireGuard is it's going to give you this cute little QR code that you can download and scan, which is really kind of nice. But in this case, I just want the actual client file. So what we're going to do is, we're going to cat the client file out, which is going to be this WG01 right there. In terms of managing the server, it's going to be kept under etc WireGuard. It's going to have its own little config here. So if we take a look at the config, we can always modify it, change it. We have the keys, we've got the IP addresses, port listening. It even has the up and down firewall rules as well. So just keep in mind that if you do want to change the port number, just be aware that the port is also being adjusted with the IP tables and all that. So just keep in mind. So let me go ahead and grab the client here. So what I want to do is I want to grab the entire client. Actually, I grab the whole thing. Here we go, cat. So I want the interface down. And let me bring up the most important tool ever, Notepad. And I am going to save this as a config file. So we're going to call this wg1.config. Okay, cool. Saving. All right, cool. Now let's open up WireGuard. So I'm going to manage tunnels. So I already got one in here, but I want to add another tunnel. And I'm just going to go ahead and grab the config file here. And it loads everything, and all I have to do is now click activate, and it's going to activate. Okay, cool. So now we have everything running. All right, so now if we go to Google, let's just take a look and see what IP address we have. There we have it. Okay, so we got the 154, which is what we expect to see, and that's how it should be. And if you ever want to deactivate, you can just do a quick deactivate, and that brings the tunnel down. So yeah, that's all there really is to it in terms of deploying WireGuard. So it's a really nice little simple thing you can use. It's a really decent protocol, quick, fast. Your mileage may vary depending on your configuration settings, so you might need to do little tweaks and tuning. But other than that, I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and follow. We've got more great content coming up. Thanks for watching.